Hello everyone, welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you're having a great day. If you've been watching Larry's Anything Goes programming, you know that we are not only providing great financial intelligence content as much as possible by interviewing other financial professionals, professionals in the travel industry, real estate industry, etc. and so forth, but we provide various services when it comes to specific products that we sell, from anything that you would actually find on Amazon or actually at Walmart, etc. and so forth. And we are actually providing specific products due to today's current crisis and whatnot to ensure that we provide the right services and products that you need at a reasonable price when it comes to medical face masks, when it comes to hand sanitizer, and when it comes to latex gloves and things of that nature, and etc. and so forth, toilet paper, paper towels. But we have what you need. Also, family, don't forget that Larry's Anything Goes is a part of an affiliate marketing network known as Gold Standard Partners, where you have the opportunity to buy cryptocurrency and allow others to invest with you as becoming an affiliate marketing partner. And obviously, if they purchase a package with the program, you're able to make money off their package purchases and make money off of their crypto purchases and things of that nature. If you want to join, please follow the links in the description, and I'll give you a call as soon as you sign up and purchase a package, and we'll go from there. But definitely, it's all about the best way to make money moves is to have currency with one another and to ensure that currency is always being spoken of on all levels so it benefits everyone and not just one specific person. That's a lot of things that people forget about. So think about joining the program and we'll be able to go from there. But if not, either way, it's always appreciated. And thank you for watching, and hopefully you guys have a great day and continuously make money moves so you don't live broke like a fool. Take care. As you can see, with our various products, we have our financial apparel, as you see, wearing There's Anything Goes t-shirt, financial intelligence is sexy, face masks, latex gloves, things of that nature, to obviously ensure the safety of you and your family all at the same time. We want to ensure that you get the best products and see the actual products that we're actually providing for you, and giving you another view of not only the shirts and the medical masks, but actually another view of actual latex gloves and the actual hand sanitizer. Because one thing we've learned throughout this unfortunate crisis is that we have to take more precautionary measures to ensure not only the safety for ourselves, but for our families. And having a great pair of hand sanitizers, latex gloves, and medical face masks will ensure that safety. And with all that being said, hopefully you guys will check out our online store. We have the various products that you see here. With a couple of clicks, especially if you're paying via PayPal, it makes life that much easier for you to purchase our various products, especially during this unfortunate situation. You see the apparel from Larry's Anything Goes. We have the medical products when it comes to hand sanitizer, latex gloves, medical face masks, things of that nature, and various other products. So please check out Larry's Anything Goes. Support small local businesses. We greatly appreciate it, and hopefully that you have a good day. How goes the family? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you guys having a great and exceptional evening. Alrighty, so I remember making a video talking about the Great Resignation. I remember making a video talking about quiet quitting. So now I'm making a video about how certain employers have done a great job of trapping their employees to where they put themselves in a position to where they cannot really quit, and if they do, then they would be worse off financially than they were beforehand, and not because they can't find another job, but because they will owe their employer a significant amount of money, or as I like to call, checkmate. Now my mindset is I don't think it's wrong if the employer knows firsthand, if the employee knows firsthand that, hey, if they take a certain amount of money from an employer, that they'd have to pay it back in a certain amount of time. They'd have to stay employed with the employer for a certain amount of time. For example, I remember working for a corporation, and the great corporation. I'm not going to name their name. Um, and I remember there was um, tuition reimbursement. And I remember with the tuition reimbursement, you had to stay, every time you get the tuition reimbursement, you would have to stay on with the employer for a certain amount of time, in order for you to not have to pay the employer back. Everything's an investment. Is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. And I remember with that employer, I stayed on for a significant amount of time, so I did not have to pay the tuition reimbursement back. Now, another employer where I had to, I was actually was one of the longest corporate employers I was actually with, and they were a great company as well, especially given the fact that they not only had PTO, paid time off, but they actually had sick leave too, which most corporations I know they don't, do that. You're lucky to even get paid time off. But anyways, I digress. So I remember that I worked for the company for almost 4 years, and at that time I wasn't really taking vacations like that. So there was tuition reimbursement, and my former boss at the time, who was very a special individual, I'll leave it at that. He thought had a checkmate on me in regards to, because life is a game of chess. When people most majority of the time people just want to play checkers because that's the way the school system raises it. That's how a lot of times parents raise their children to be checkers players, not chess players. Meaning that it takes a lot more thought to win in the game of chess than it does the game of checkers. So it is what it is. But anyways, so I remember I had maybe 400 hours of leave altogether between my sick leave and vacation. And so my boss employer at the time slash project manager at the time was like, "Do you really know you owe the company money?" Because I was leaving the job, and I don't regret that decision, leaving that particular job. He said that you realize that you owe X amount of dollars to us because you took a tuition reimbursement. Oh, I said that's no problem. I talked to HR, and they said they can just take that from my leave. I have almost 400 hours worth of leave left. And he looked like this and was like, "Oh, really?" He was like, "Yeah." So because with the way he said it to me, he was very smug about it, like, haha, we got you now. You owe us money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, haha. I had this game plan in check. That's why my last year there, I didn't take any time off except for sick leave because I knew the beautiful thing about working for corporations is that when you leave them, majority of the time you get the cash. If you have leave, you can utilize that leave or you can cash it out. And me at that time, I'm like, hey, cash out the leave. So I had enough money to pay the employer back in regards to the tuition reimbursement. And I had enough, I think I had like almost 200 hours worth of leave in order for me to cash out. So, having that extra amount of money plus my last two paychecks, it was a beautiful thing. But I knew about all this going into the situation. So anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes. I just wanted to give a personal life story because there's a lot of great corporations out here that offer those incentives because of the great resignation, meaning, because of people having more and more people making money via online, other businesses, uh, owning their own businesses and working for other employers that will allow them to work from home 100% of the time. That's a big reason why the great resignation took place. On top of that, having a lot of people on unemployment for a long time, for about 2 years, all at the same time. So those were multiple factors that led to the Great Resignation. But remember, the Great Resignation didn't just start during the pandemic. It was slowly building up before the pandemic. I think the pandemic just intensified it because more and more people we're working from home, and more people love the quality of life of not having the hustle or bustle of driving into an office and being in an unstable environment and be around people who have a toxic nature to them, toxic bosses, toxic co-workers, etc., and so forth. So I can understand it. I can agree with that, and it is what it is. Okay, now. So the reason why I'm going live tonight, not just because I have a funeral I have to attend to next week. So I'm trying to get out all the content that I can now, because Sunday and Monday, most likely you will not hear from me. But the article from Truth Out says more U.S. employers are trapping workers in a new form of indentured servitude. Now, I think this might be a little excessive, new form of indentured servitude, but a lot of corporations and employees do have a way of ensuring that people have to remain employed with them. Um, but like I said, as long as they know about it, I don't see it being a way of being indentured servitude or things of that nature. But anyways, the article says bosses in industries such as retail, healthcare, and logistics are reverting to an old tactic, trapping people in miserable jobs by threatening to saddle them with debt if they quit. Now, I remember, obviously you had, in the beginning stages of the American colonies, you had indentured servants where people that came from England and other parts of the world, if they came to the United States colonies and whatnot, and they didn't have enough money to pay for the voyage from Europe to the new world, then they'd have to work it off as a being an indentured servant and things of that nature. And then, of course, they had slaves, which was AKA free labor, so it made life easier for the people to work the fields and do various other jobs in order to have free labor and things of that nature. Plus, they had those slaves insured, and they traded them on the stock market, so things of that nature. It's the American way, capitalism. It is what it is. Was it right? No, but it is what it is. I'm not going to get into that. But anyways, so it's an old tactic. Workers across the United States in fields ranging from nursing to trucking have been discouraged from leaving jobs they hate or can't afford to keep because employers vow to charge them for training costs if they quit before an arbitrary deadline. Now, before I go forward, if the employees knew about this, knew that if they got into the job and they didn't like, obviously they knew that they had to, it's kind of like in a sense joining the military and whatnot and other organizations. You sign a contract, going in that, hey, these are the things that you have to do and these are the repercussions that you will face if you do not meet your obligations. It is what it is. Now, do I think that that's right? I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, because if the employers know about this going in, then I don't see a problem with it. Now, if they didn't know about this going in, then I think that's 100%, wrong. Because to me, it's like, um, full disclosure. Let these people know what they're getting into. So even if they don't want to stay on board, they know that they will have to pay a certain amount of money in order for them to be clear and free from your employment and whatnot. And and it is what it is at the end of the day. But you have to remember, this isn't a knock at employees or employers, but you have to remember everything is a business investment in the United States of America. Marriage, family, jobs, owning a business, insurance, quote unquote pension plans, investments. Everything is an investment in a business in this country, whether people want to believe it or not. And you have to look at your job as that. They're investing time and energy in you to train you so that you can become a productive member of their team, in order for them to become more efficient, and in order for them to um, you know increase productivity, sell more products, provide better services, whatever the case may be. You, as the employee, are there to work, get money. Hopefully, you have great benefits. Hopefully, you have access to a 401k, so that your money is working for you even when you're not, and you're getting a skill set so that when the time comes, that you can either utilize that skill set with another employer, or you can utilize that skill set working for yourself on the side. Like, it's very common for truckers who work for actual corporations will actually do other delivery side work when they have the time, just to make some extra money and whatnot, because most employers, there's usually a cap rate where you're at. And that's why a lot of people have their passive income methods via online services and other areas for them, like being a DoorDash, Grubhub driver, Uber driver, Amazon driver, things of that nature. All right. But It's like I said, knowing what the situation is. Like I was talking about the young man who works at the deli that I go to at my grocery store. He's going into a training program to be an electrician, and he knows that he's gonna he wants to see it through, but he knows he even told me if I don't see it through, I might owe them $3,000 or $4,000. But this is full disclosure to him from his future employer. Let's just leave it at that. All right, the article says the threats are backed by so-called training repayment agreement provisions. See what I mean? Training repayment agreement provisions, traps. It's interesting that that's what the that's what the acronym stands for. Training repayment agreement provisions, traps. TRAPS. All right, employment contracts. The practice has been likened by critics to indentured servitude and pe- peonage, formerly common types of debt bondage in which a borrower was bound to perform labor for a creditor and whatnot. Traps have recently come under fire from policymakers because of class action litigation against the pet store chain PetSmart and reporting on the restrictive covenants from a watchdog group called the Student Borrower Protection Center. Earlier this month, the Senate Banking Committee held hearings examining the agreements and other forms of employer driven debt. In June, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also launched an investigation of employment arrangements that led to workers owing money to their bosses and whatnot. Now, like I said, my side on this is that if the employee knew about the situation, then I don't see you having really much of a case from a legal standpoint if you willingly went into this um, legal contract knowing that, hey, I'd have to pay back X amount of services and things of that nature if I do not see things through. Now, if there was any shady business in regards to the employer not telling these employees that, then I would see that they may have a case. But I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get in too deep into the weeds on this because I'm not going to not giving out legal advice. That's just a common sense light bulb going off for me, and I'll leave it at that. The article says two workers who are being threatened by thousands of dollars in bills through the enforcement of traps appeared before the banking committee on September 7th. So this is recent. Brianne Skelly, the lead plaintiff in a class action against PetSmart, told lawmakers about how she was left owing $5,500 to the company for a dog grooming academy that was initially advertised as free. Aha. And see, like I said, deception. Now, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, so I'm not, but like I said, the common sense in me is like, okay, well, there's some deception here. And if you don't have any paperwork to back this thing up, that this is why this employee owes $5,500, like this is that, and I have a problem with this. Like I said, my previous employers, whether I liked them or didn't particularly care for them, they always had full disclosure and whatnot saying, hey, if you take part of these specific programs, these are the repercussions if you don't follow through with the tuition reimbursement. Great example with the 401k pension plan. They what is it? One employer, like I said, I'm leaving names out. They did not match your contributions until you stay with them for at least 3 years. Okay. Or you would, yeah, my bad. No, this is what it was. Certain employers wouldn't match your contributions if you weren't with them for at least a year or 2 years or 3 years. But this one employer that was actually great, but the people that were on the team I was on weren't particularly that great. This one employer, they would match your contributions from day one. However, um, they would they would take back those contributions if you left them before the 3-year time frame. But this is fully disclosed during the employee orientation, and I made sure to stay with that employer for the full 3 years so that I would be in the category of being fully vested with my 401k, so that my contributions from the employer themselves, as they would match my contributions, would stay with my 401k. So when I rolled it over to another 401k, it'd be like the folks in the South say, everything's chicken but the bone because I'm at home. All right. But on this situation, it seems like PetSmart, like I said, allegedly, because I'm just reading this verbatim from the news, so I'm not going to put out any false information. Allegedly, PetSmart was charging the groomers to for the academy when they advertised it as free, and they're actually saying that because the groomer left the employer, that now the groomer actually owes them $5,500. My opinion, I think this is wrong, but when a single individual is going against, this is why it's a class action lawsuit. Usually, when a single individual is going after a corporation is going to win because the legal business is the money business at the end of the day. But anyways, the article says registered nurse KC Pennings testified about being stuck with $7,500, more than 6 months' rent, after leaving one hospital job because she was appalled by staffing ratios during the COVID-19 pandemic and didn't want to be complicit in neglecting patients. And that's what it is. Sometimes you're put in a position where your job sucks. It is what it is. It could be the best pay. The hours could be maybe decent, but the environment is terrible, horrific. And a lot of times you just, for your sanity, you got to go. I never forget years ago, this is probably back in the 2004, 2005, when I really used to watch a lot of documentaries. It was talking about the school district in Baltimore, Maryland, and this one guy who was passionate about being a teacher, he left the school district and he left teaching because he's like, hey, mentally this is draining on me, and I have to do what's best for me and my life and my family, because I want to be, I want to be sane, and when I want to be in a place where I'm looking forward to going, not dreading going, so I get that. But anyways, although the pair came from different industries, they both detailed indifference from their ex-managers in response to their grievances. Despite being one of the most profitable healthcare systems in the nation, more former employer responded to cries from help from the front line with breakfast burritos and free water bottles, Penning said. Scally recalled how one manager told her she could work her way out of debt simply by upselling or convincing customers to buy more pet grooming products and services. She said that she sold $6,000 worth of products, but was still charged the full amount of debt months after she left the job. And a lot of times you just have crappy managers. It doesn't matter how many management classes one takes. I think certain corporations and usually most government organizations do a great job of trying to train. From federal to state to local, they do a great job of training people to be the best managers that they can be. But I just think that most people are not meant to be managers. They don't have the right. You have to have the right personality to be a manager. Okay, because especially nowadays, with most people, nobody wants to work under a sergeant major or a general or a colonel and whatnot unless they're in uniform. That's a different story. Unless they're in law enforcement, unless they're serving in the United States military, you know, that's a different story. But in the civilian world, a lot of times people come to the table with that energy, and they're on a power trip. And because they don't have the right people skills, they become the worst. They might be the smartest, most intelligent, most sophisticated people on the planet, but they lack the people skills in order to manage people. I know I don't have people skills to manage people because I'm straight to the point, and I don't like a lot of fluff, and I don't like a lot of babysitting, and I don't, because a lot of times you're a manager, not all the times, but a lot of times when you're a manager, you're sincerely a glorified babysitter. I don't like to babysit adults. I only like babysitting people's kids. So that's not going to be my thing. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day. But see, I can admit that most people are like, well, I'm up for the challenge because they want to make more money at their job. Because a lot of times in most jobs, the only time you get a raise or a promotion is usually at the falls in the management category. And I think that's very horrible, because with that being said, the worst people and the wrong people get put into management, and then they bring down the value at time of the company and the organization, and therefore they lose some of their best talent because they put the wrong people in the higher positions. Anyways, the dollar value attached by each company to the cost of training appeared to have been pulled from the thin air. The young lady said, I thought I was going to get important and valuable training, but it wasn't anything like that. I didn't get any kind of license or accreditation or anything, and my actual training was only a few weeks. Pennings also told lawmakers that she doubted that 7,500 price tag placed on the cost of her training regime. At the second hearing on September 13, one of her lawyers stated that the Senate Banking Committee, that traps are used by managers to leave workers stuck with low pay, dangerous conditions, abusive treatment, or work that does not allow them to advance professionally. The chair of the committee, Ohio Democrat Sherrod Brown, was unimpressed with the managerial tactic. Like I said, like the traps when they're used like this, to me, from a legal standpoint, there should be, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but from a legal standpoint, I would imagine that something has to be in writing. This is the beautiful thing, where contracts need to be put in writing and not this word of mouth crap, and not this. And this is the thing with future employees. Okay. If somebody when you go to a job, and I'm not giving out legal advice, so talk to a lawyer, but this is just the common sense in me. This is me. I like, the paper pusher in me. If I go to a job and they say, okay, we're going to give you this kind of training. However, with this training, if you leave at a certain amount of time, you will owe us X amount of dollars. Great. Where's that in the company policy? Let me see that in writing. Very simple. And they're like, well, we don't have that in writing. Well, I'm not going to take part in this. I'm going to have to get me another job because you don't operate. And I know, and a lot of times people don't want to hear it, but you don't, if it's not in writing, it don't mean nothing. Okay. That's just what it is. This word of mouth crap. No, that's why so many people get caught up today in stupid crimes because they put all their business on freaking social media and the texts and the videos and the posts, all that, it implicates them in a specific situation where they end up going to jail because, the lawyer, at the hearing or whatever, they just play the videos to show the social media. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, guilty. And that's my mindset. So I think, obviously, from a legal standpoint, if a corporation's going or company's going to do this, then it just should be in writing. But this is bad management and managers all at the same time because I've given two different situations where I was told about my 401k plan, I was told about my tuition reimbursement plan, and I worked it out. I was told about all those things and I worked it out. And I thought that was so cool and amazing. And it worked out for me in both situations. But these are traps. These situations obviously are made for people to end up in the forever indebted zone. And I think that's wrong. Forget the Democrat and Republican thing. I just think that's wrong. And in a sense, it does sound like indentured servitude when you're not giving out full disclosure. All right. But it is, and a lot of, like I said, you got some good companies, you got some bad companies. A lot of them, and the ones that are bad, they're the ones that do these things. And then a lot of times, this is the reason why they want illegal immigrants to work for them so that they can keep them held trapped. It's I always say there's so many ways people get trapped. They get trapped at a job, they get trapped with student loans, but at least they get trapped in a bad marriage, they get trapped in bad neighborhoods. People get trapped in various different situations. But to me, when there's disclosure, and I hope that these individuals and more people that get put in these positions, not only learn a lesson, but I hope that they win their lawsuit and go from there. All right, because I just think it's wrong at the end of the day. And to me, the trap is wrong. Period. That's indentured servitude. That could be, in a sense, called slavery, to where they're trying to keep them stuck there. And the main reason why they're trying to keep them stuck there is because of the Great Resignation. They're trying to keep them stuck there because of the quiet quitting generation. And that, to me, is just a filthy tactic at the end of the day. But the thing is, employers have had to learn. You have to give people a good incentive to want to stay with your organization. Don't trap them like this. I think that's wrong. All right. That's just what it is. The article says that the law does not permit employers or others to provide a work opportunity exchange for a worker's promise to indenture themselves to their employer through debt. These sorts of work arrangements harken back to 19th century peonage used to subjugate former slaves, and they are precisely the kind of exploitation that our anti-trafficking laws were designed to prohibit. Um, and peonage was imposed on former slaves in the southern United States during Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era through sharecropping arrangements and fines levied by racist law enforcement. And that's the thing, during Reconstruction and during Jim Crow in the southern states after the Civil War, most of the people that let those plantations, a lot of them had to remain on the plantations because they needed a job. And then, of course, you didn't have any laws to really protect them, the new free slaves. So they needed a job, and they would get a job working on the same plantation that they used to work on for free. But then the owner of the plantation was like, well, yeah, but you owe me for food, you owe me for housing and whatnot. And not being literate, they took advantage of them, and it lasted for generations upon generations to a point where a lot of people ended up leaving. Those are one of the biggest reasons why people left the South and went to the North or went to the West, just so they could get away from the sharecroppers lifestyle. And that's just what it is. That's why financial intelligence is so freaking important, because you have to. I'm going to quote Swiss Beats when he went to Harvard business school and whatnot to get his degree, so he could learn more about business and how the economy and the global economy works. He says, when you go into You have to understand when you're going into a job interview, you're going to war. When you are doing business, you're at war. Business is war. It's from my favorite movie, Rising Sun, with Wesley Snipes and Sean Connery. Business is war. Having a job is war. And when I say going to war, I'm not talking about shooting people or hurting people or trying to kill people. But you have to understand, especially in the information age, who are you working for? How long do you think you're going to want to stay with them? What skill sets you're going to get from them? And then two, get not only ask those specific questions, but get it in writing. Ensure that they have the policies in place and in writing. Because if not, then I guarantee you that's not the employer you want to work for. I don't care what company it is, what state it's in. That's not the organization you want to work for if it's not in writing. Not only is it in writing, it's something that's in writing with your name on it, and that's something that you can keep and whatnot, just in case something does happen. Because this is how employers take advantage. A lot of employers take advantage of employees by doing this nonsense. You know, and this is one of the good reasons why a lot of people enjoy working for government organizations, because they have stuff in writing and there's more protection for the employers. All right, that's just what it is. And a lot of people will get into the political nonsense, but hey, if you have happier employers, then you have less of a great resignation. You less of a great resignation, you have more productivity in your organization. Something to think about. All right. Something to think about. The article says, although critics question the legality of traps, a legal analyst published last year found that courts generally uphold the agreements and challenges brought under anti-kickback provisions of the Fair Labor Standard Act, the law establishing a federal minimum wage. However, the author of the study, uh, Lo- Loyola, Yo- Loyola Marymount associate law professor Jonathan F. Harris, said that another type of legal challenge might prove more successful. Courts could refuse to enforce trap contract language under the so-called unconsciously doctrine, a legal principle that allows judges to void agreements containing unreasonable terms dictated by a party with superior bargaining power. In 2000, the study noted that a federal judge in Manhattan nullified one employment agreement in a financial services industry, ruling that the language of the contract approaches indentured servitude. And there you go. It's like I said, I'm not going to get into the weeds of it because I'm not a lawyer, but to me, um, this is not only interesting, but this is just something to take into consideration at the end of the day. And a lot of people um, will get caught up in the traps, um, like this, when you don't want, one, when you don't know any better, and two, when you looking at an employer not having that much protection, and three, it's just at the end of the day, my mindset is business is war, regardless of the situation. And employers, they're not your friends. They're not your friends. They can become your enemies, but they're just somebody you're working for so that you can move to the next best level and step in your life. We're no longer in the generation of the baby boomers where working for the one same employer for the rest of your life is the gospel. That was during a time frame when corporate America had more, not only more protections for the employers, but they had more pension plans for the employees. So those days are over with. And with that being said, you got to look out for a numero uno family. So I just wanted to read that. And they said that traps been commonly used by employers since the 1990s, but they were almost exclusively reversed then for highly specialized workers such as engineers or airplane pilots. As markets become increasingly concentrated and union power was diminished by policymakers into the 21st century, bosses used their growing dominance to impose traps on rank and file workers such as truckers, nurses, mechanics, electricians, salespeople, paramedics, flight attendants, bank workers, repairmen, and social workers. Interesting. And my mind's and especially when you look at the skilled trades aspect of people like truckers, mechanics, and electricians, um, paramedics, and things of that nature, that flight attendants, they want to do that because those jobs, bank workers, repair people, those jobs is one are highly skilled sets, especially repairmen, mechanics, engineers, truckers, nurses. Those are real skilled labor jobs, and they know that once you get the skill sets and once you get a couple of years under your belt, that they know that the chances of you leaving, saying "forget this, I'm out," it becomes higher and higher every day. And that's why they want to trap you in those specific, put you in the trap in those specific job sets, because they know that, say, hey, I don't need this crap. I can go elsewhere. I can go to the backwoods of Mississippi and be a bank worker, a paramedic, salesperson, electrician, repairman, social worker, especially if you're a truck driver, a mechanic, repair person. Man, get out of here. You can nurse. That's why the travel nurse thing is so big right now, because one, they get paid more, and two, they're able to travel to other parts of the country more, and then three, they're self-employed contractors. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Because I have a friend of mine whose sister is a travel nurse, and she loved it, especially during the pandemic. She made almost $200,000 these last 2 years. Okay, I'm sorry, within 2021, she made almost $200,000. All right, and she was basically just living in Airbnbs. you know and she's found an employer now, because she was doing it 2 years and it could wear you out and whatnot. She's found an employer now, but she could always go back to doing a travel nursing. And she's not under anybody's contract, especially given the fact that she went to school. She was in the military, and she went to school to be a nurse and whatnot in the military. And then when she got out, she was a reservist for a little bit. But yeah, she's girlfriend makes her money moves, and because she has her as a travel nurse, she just created her own LLC and things of that nature. Not only was she making more money, but she's getting more tax write-offs because she's a quote unquote self-employer working under the guise of her business. So it's just something to take into consideration, family. You know what I mean? So I leave that alone. And another aspect of the traps that they talk about, to me, this is very, very, very interesting, was is the empirical analysis has been done, shown that bosses primarily using traps for employee immobility to obstruct workers from leaving jobs. They also found that anecdotal evidence from the nursing sector, which showed the restrictive agreements mostly widened by employers unable or unwilling to compete on wages and other benefits. So that's the thing. They want to put you under these specific contracts, trap you to ensure that not only that you stay, but that you're not even making enough freaking money to be able to compete in the freaking market and whatnot. So they're like, yeah, we're going to not only trap you, we're going to ensure that you don't ever get a raise and whatnot. So then that keeps you financially desperate all at the same time. That's a trap. Okay. But anyways, another aspect before I end this video off says payday advances were another type of employer driven by debt examined by the Senate Banking Committee. And they highlighted the case of Marriott workers in Philadelphia who became dependent on short term loans from the company's credit union because scheduling practices made it difficult for them to earn consistent income without getting a second job. Wow. Franchising agreements that misclassify workers as independent contractors can also leave low wage earners heavily in debt to bosses because of franchising fees, they told the committee. This is a cold game right here, man. Just like this stuff, I didn't even, this is interesting. The Consumer Financial Protections Bureau investigation into employer driven debt will be examining franchising agreements, among other job agreements that involve deferred payment to the employer or associate entity for employer mandated training, equipment, or other expenses. The agency will also be looking at traps through it, though it describes the arrangement as training repayment agreements. There's also an ongoing bureau investigation of payday advances, so-called earned wages access products, which was launched in February. And it's interesting because, and I know the traps intensified during the pandemic because a lot more people didn't want to work for, especially low wage employers. Like I remember seeing McDonald's starting people off at $10, $15 an hour. Finally, it took a pandemic for them to start paying people a decent wage. Then you saw other organizations, entities starting off with a $2,000 to $3,000 and whatnot. I remember Wells Fargo and other banking institutions did that at the same time. But it would say in the job description, because I was helping a friend get a job at the time, hey, you must stay employed with us for at least a year, or you will have to forfeit that money back. So but that to me, that's not a trap if you know about this willingly going into the agreement. That's the whole thing. My mindset is it's a trap when they're lying to you and misleading you, and then they're literally trying to set you up to remain an indentured servant to the freaking company. And it's crazy that this still happens in today's world, but it's just one of those things. I didn't think that that employers would do that even to try to get you indentured to their banks. I mean, this is the stuff you'd see in documentaries that happened back in the 1920s and 30s and whatnot. When a lot of workers didn't have any rights. You would think that stuff like this didn't happen, but it does happen. So it's interesting all at the same time. But on that note, I'm going to call it a night. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed it. Give me your perspective on the traps. Let me know if you've actually ever been put into the trap. You know, Jay Morrison talks about the trap. Ti's always talked about the trap. You know, have you had if you're on my social media, you've seen I went to the Trap House Museum down in Atlanta, and that was interesting. But you know, and I remember making a freaking poem about avoid the trap, because there's so many traps that one can get into. People being on welfare, people going into student loan debt, people have a multitude of children that they can't afford, people getting going up to their ears in debt, living in overpriced cities, people getting into these kind of jobs. There's so many ways that people can get trapped in today's world, but a lot of folks don't want to think about it, and that's why I said having the economic education, having the wherewithal to know that, hey, when you're dealing with an employer, you got to go in there like it's a boxing match. You got to know when to bob and weave. You better train for it on a regular basis, mentally, physically, and spiritually. You know that it's going to have to be a time frame where you're not going to work for them for the rest of your life. And you got to put yourself in a position where you have options and more options, whether it's you being able to work for another employer or you having skill sets to the point where you can have your own side business and make your job an option. That's true economic freedom in today's world. It's not only being rich, but turning your job into an option. All right, that's all I can say about that. Because when you trap yourself in one position and you can't do anything else, you can't go anywhere else, you become the most miserable person on the freaking planet. And most people don't think that's true, but it's the God's honest truth. So on that note, family, do the great 3 free things. Like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully you guys have a great night. If you're a stock market investor, crypto investor, individual retirement account investor, don't forget to check out WEBULL Stash Acorns Crypto.com. WEBULL Stash Acorns Crypto.com. All those platforms, you'll be able to make money moves with them. All those links are in the description. Don't forget to check out my online store. And if you don't do that, then I'll be knocking at your door. No, I'm just playing. But honestly, real talk, just do the great 3 free things. Like, share, and subscribe. All right. On that note, I'm out. Take care. And as I always say, make money moves. I'm going to live, bro, like a fool, family. Take care.
Mike, now.